3 minutes left. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about legislative process and some recent legislation. And before we get started, how many people in here that don't overthink this, okay? What is the name of the hill that the Capitol building sits on in Nashville? There you go. Give this girl a prize. Whoops, I'm sorry. Okay. Now, does anybody know how many members there are totally in the Tennessee legislature? Good, that was mine. Anybody know how many there are in the House?
95.
Close.
96.
80.
101.
52.
We've hit up 50.
97.
You're the closest so far.
92. 96.
98.
90. Oh, 99.
99.
99. There we go. Okay. Anybody know how many members there are in the Senate? The Tennessee Senate.
38.
Come on, keep guessing, guys.
Up or down or down? Up.
22.
80.
30. 24.
26. 26. 25.
35. 43.
33. We got a winner. Okay. So, folks, I'm here to hopefully talk to you just a little bit about how the legislative process works, some of the very few things that the legislature has done in the last year. Okay. The legislature meets in biannual sessions. Let me see, where are we? Legislative process, next slide. First of all, let me tell you, if real estate is your profession, then politics is your business. That's a NAR quote, and it's the fact, folks. Anybody in here doesn't think the legislature affects your life? Raise your hand. They do every single day, and it is important to you to know what they're doing, to follow what they're doing, and to give them input on what they're doing. They don't know what all's going on, folks. We got 99 in the House. Next slide. Let's see here. This is the legislative website. If you have never been to Tennessee's legislative website, the bottom left-hand corner down there has the web address. It's on your thing there. Go to that website. It's on the slide that you've got, okay? Go to that. Kick around in that for a while. It is one of the best websites in the country of all the legislatures. You can pull up your representative, your senator, their biography, their email, their office phone number, which they don't even know and answer, but they got an assistant that does. And you can see every bill they've sponsored. You can watch in real time, live, every single committee and floor session of the legislature. You can follow bills. You can there's a place you can go and put the bills you want to watch, and you can go back to it every day, and it'll tell you if there's anything happening on that bill. So it is incredible. And if, as citizens, if we don't do that, we are wasting our time and wasting our money with folks that are up there if we're not doing that already. Next slide. But go to that website, kick around. You're going to find out it's incredible. We are currently, or the legislature just adjourned sine die, which means that it's over, okay, unless they're called by special session of the governor, for the 113th session of the Tennessee legislature. There is a session every 2 years. And this last one started in 2023. We have a first term and a second term of each session. They are independent of one another, but if a bill is pending at the end of the first session and hadn't been defeated or anything, it automatically carries over to the next. Now, the legislature is adjourned, so every piece of legislation that did not pass is gone. And if anybody wants to bring it back, they got to start all over through the process. There were over 2,000 bills filed in the legislature. That's a lot to watch, folks. And you say, well, how do you watch those things? You better be a member of a group of some kind, character, description that has a lobbyist, because that's what they do. They watch that legislation for you. The insurance industry has lobbyists. The real estate industry has lobbyists. The Land Title Association has lobbyists. The Bar Association has lobbyists. Lobbyists aren't bad people. Lobbyists are people that keep their members informed of what's going on and listen to their members and try to influence legislators for what's good for their industry or good for the state of Tennessee. Very important people, okay? Hundreds of bills have already gone to the governor for signature. It's too late now if he hadn't already signed them, but he's signed tons and tons of bills. I don't know any that he vetoed. Next slide. And that shows you that there are 99 House members. Every one of those is up for election this year. Who in here knows the name of their House of Representatives member? Folks, mine's John Gillespie. Who in here knows the name of their state senator? Wow, good. Thank you, Pat. You get another piece of candy later. I'm not going to throw at you anymore. The legislature, that's important, folks. You need to know who your representative is. They need to know who you are, and they need to know how you feel about those pieces of legislation that are important to you. You can send them an email and they're not going to read your email. You understand? They got somebody that does that for them, okay? A young lady, young guy, an intern, whatever, but they're tracking it. And if they get a response and say, we've had somebody, that wrote us against this bill, they're not going to read your email probably. But if they get a notice and say, we've had 250 people who are against this bill and none that have written us that are for it, do you think that has an impact on that legislator's mind? And let me tell you, how many people in here have more than one email address? Everybody. Everyone you use is a different contact. They're not smart enough up there to put that together. And if you call them on the phone, that's another contact. And if you call them on your office phone, that's another contact. You can hit that legislator 8-9 times. They won't even know that it's you doing in multiple, but that's important to do. Some of y'all in here, as Lynn mentioned, have been members of me, and we send out legislative alerts, and we give you the names, the phone numbers, the addresses of your city council people, of your state representative or whatever, and say, write them. Sometimes we'll give you talking points. It makes a difference. There was a bill in the legislature this year talking about where right now, currently, there's one county in Tennessee that is allowed to have a property rental registration registry, and that's Davidson County. And that's because there's a law that specifically allows that. Memphis has wanted one for 12 years. The Memphis Investors Group, the realtors, the real estate lawyers have all been against it. Why? What's wrong with telling the government who you are and that you own rental property? Well, there's nothing really wrong with that, but what are they going to do with the information? They have know that they got no plans for the information. They just want you to register and pay them a fee. So they can, and their stated goal is to hire more property inspectors. How many feel under inspected in property that you own? Nobody. And we have asked them time and time again, give us empirical evidence that this is going to do any good to fight blight, which is what they're claiming. And they got none. Okay. So, in fact, I and another fellow went to Nashville and testified in the legislature this year, and that bill to give Memphis that ability was defeated. Next slide.
Joe,
Yes.
regarding the letters, sometimes I'll get letters that they'll say, you know, sign this and send it. If they get like 1,000 letters, it's the exact same letter. Do they pay attention to that? Or
They do, but not as much attention as if you get 1,000 letters and they're all different.
Okay.
That's why generally when I send out these legislative calls, I may give you talking points, but I don't write your letter. You should write your letter. It doesn't have, look, they want to see one thing. Are you for it or against it? You can give them 28 pages of data. They're not going to read it. It's a plus or a minus on their check sheet. Okay.
Would that be the keywords? Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, because they're looking for keywords. I'm
Please
sure.
vote against
Right.
Senate Bill 1482.
Is that all you have to say?
I mean, you might say, you know, we've looked at this and it's not a good piece of legislation, whatever. Give them a paragraph. But yeah, that should be your subject line. Okay. This is the legislative process. Every bill has to go through every step on that chart. Folks, that's a lot of work to get a bill passed. It's a whole lot easier to kill one than it is to pass one. Next slide, please. This is some of the legislation that has been that passed or that was considered. First of all, there was a governor's voucher bill. It died. The House and the Senate couldn't come together with the governor on how that should happen. And so that died last year. It died again this year. And the governor's going to bring it back next year. But you need to be concerned about that, because what they're going to do is take dollars from public education and move it to charter schools. I don't care if you're for it or against it. Is it a good idea? Do you think that the government ought to be supporting private schools? That's what the story is. And private schools fail faster than public schools if you look at the history of when they've gone down. Concealed carry by school staff. Teachers can now, if they're approved by the sheriff and if they're approved by the school system, can carry guns in the classroom. Did you know that? How do you feel about that if your child is in that classroom? And they don't tell you that teacher's carrying. Yeah, they've got to have some training, which the average citizen doesn't have to have. But bail consideration bill passed. That says that the legislature is, or excuse me, that the judges and the magistrates can do not have to look at your income when considering bail. Right now, they were turning people out on their own recognizance because they didn't have enough money to post a bond. Don't care if you are charged with murder. That was happening. Next bill was restrict certain foreign investments in real property. There were actually about 5 bills in the legislature. This one passed. And if you are a resident or a citizen of a country that does not allow the United States citizens to own property there, you can't own property here. If you're in a terrorist, China, Iran, Russia, North Korea, you can't own property here in Tennessee. Okay. If you do, you got 2 years to sell it or the state takes it away from you. Next slide, please. There is the Department of Revenue was charged with developing a statewide tax lien database. Right now, you have to look in the records in each county. They want to be able to look at it statewide. Frankly, I think that's a bad idea. This is just to establish software protocols. But right now, when I do a title search and the buyer is John Smith, I just have to search Shelby County to see if there's any tax liens against him here. If it's statewide, I got to search 95 counties. And how many John Smiths are there in Tennessee? Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations. I was on a Zoom call with them yesterday. There was a bill in the legislature to require identity verification when you go to record a document at the registrar's office. Sounds like a great idea, but most people that record documents at the registrar's office, our office, we don't go over there. They're not going to get our ID. They're going to get the ID of our courier that we hired from XYZ Courier Company. What good's that going to do? How's that going to prevent fraud? That was broadened. There's now a study going on by TASER, which is the Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations, to look at the issue of real estate fraud. And it is rampant. If you don't know, that's a whole nother 2-hour seminar. I gave yesterday a 2-page outline of just different issues. Raised the penalty for drag racing in Tennessee from a Class A misdemeanor to a Class E felony. Hell, let's make it a Class A. Let's put them in jail for 15 to 60 years. Jillian's Law, if you are incompetent to stand trial in Tennessee, you could still go buy a firearm. You were charged with murder, found mentally incompetent, and you can still go buy a firearm. Not with this. So people say red flag laws are bad. I'm sorry. If somebody's been found mentally incompetent, should they be able to go buy a firearm? So that's what Jillian's Law was about. That did pass. Next slide, please.
Joseph?
Yes.
When you go to the Senate and the legislature, how many people before that bill actually gets passed? How many people of the 99, for instance, that you have? Do you need like 50%, 60%?
You need 50% of the members to pass. No, of the members.
Okay.
So, for instance, in the Senate, 33 members, 17 positive votes. I don't care how many show up that day. It needs 17 positive votes to pass the Senate. Does that answer your question,
Yes.
sir? Okay. Now, the anti-squatting bill. Florida came up with a bill that said you don't have to go to court to kick people out of your property if they're squatters, not a tenant, not a holdover tenant. This doesn't apply to them. This doesn't apply to your son who won't move out of the house. Okay. This is a true squatter. You've got a vacant property and somebody just moves in. Does it happen? You better believe it. Lady did it on a $3.5 million house on Shady Grove Road South about 5 years ago.
Sovereign citizen.
Sovereign citizen. Okay. Well, that now has, this bill was actually, it was a whole nother bill. It got hijacked by the sponsor. The sponsor substituted virtually the language of the Florida law, and it passed the House 92-0 and the Senate 30-0.
Wow.
Okay, that's strong, folks. That's sending a signal. It had 10 co-prime sponsors in the Senate and 73 in the House out of 99. Next slide, please. This bill says that you have to go through a procedure and you can file a complaint to remove persons unlawfully occupying real estate. This is not a complaint you file with the court. You're going to file this with the sheriff. And I'm running out of time, so long story short, the sheriff will determine whether or not, number one, you're the owner. Number two, we'll look at this application that you filed, and there's a copy of it in your materials. You'll need to go look it up to be able to read it because it's too small for you to read. But there's a form that you will fill out. You are liable if you lie on that form. Okay, financially, you are liable. You don't be doing this on the holdover tenant. That is not what it's for. If you've got a tenant that's holding over, they're going to have to go through the whole FED process, forcible entry and detainer, the whole eviction process. But if you file this complaint and if the sheriff can verify you're the owner and the other things on the thing, they'll kick the tenant out in 3 days.
Okay.
But this is only on residential property.
This on residential property, yes, sir, that is correct. Thank you very much for bringing that up, okay? That's unheard of. Now, we don't know how the sheriffs are gonna feel about this. Sheriffs don't like to make those types of decisions. They don't mind charging people with crimes, but to make a decision about whether or not that person in there is the proper person. Historically, you got the lady living in the $3.5 million house in Shady Grove South, and you call the sheriff and they say, that's a civil matter. We need to handle that in court. Handling in court is 30 to 90 days if you're lucky. 3 days. Game changer, okay? And so I encourage you to look that up. Next slide, please. This tells you, one more. This tells you where it's going to be codified in the Tennessee Code. It's 29-18-135. If you don't know, you've got access to the Tennessee Code for free, folks. You can find a link to it on the legislative website, or on the Supreme Court's website, or on the Memphis Investors Group website links page. Everybody's got an access. You need to be able to find a law. How many of you watch the news and say, well, I really wonder what that law says? Anybody in here ever done that? You can look these up. And we're going to teach Wes how to do it in just a little bit. But you've got to go through this list of things, next slide, before you even talk to the sheriff's office. 8 items there. And then next slide. That's my draft of the form, but those are the questions, the 13 questions that are on the form that you'll sign under penalty of perjury to get the tenant out. Yes, or to get the squatter out.
Joseph, let's say that the person is in there squatting and they have 3 days to get out. Is there a penalty after they get out on that 3 days?
Well, that's it. No, but the sheriff's going to go just set their stuff on the street like a regular eviction.
Okay.
But the penalty is going to be the sheriff's looking at them to see if there are any other crimes. That's one of the things the sheriff's charged to do. So that may give the sheriff a whole nother reason to kick those people out. Okay.
Well, that's great.
Really, that law is a game changer. First passed in Florida, then Georgia, then Tennessee. It's going across the country. You're going to see this in other jurisdictions.
Crazy, we didn't have that to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, but courts are the protection for the people, and tenants are people, okay? But a squatter didn't have any right at all. If they had any right, if they've ever had a lease on this property, they're not a squatter. If they're a relative of yours, they're not a squatter. It's presumed you may have given them some indication they can move in. There, you are civilly liable if you do this and it's wrongful. And a person harmed by being removed by the sheriff can't sue the sheriff.
Oh, good.
Okay, next slide. I want to thank y'all. There's my contact information. If you've got any questions, we'd be glad to answer them now or later. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Joe, just for a little bit of background history, when did the squatter issue really come to?
Well, I can't give you a date. It has always been there, but it is getting worse.
Mhm.
It is getting worse because more and more people, there have been no ramifications. You can live there for, 60, 90, 120 days or more and not pay anything. Why would you not do that? Let's just move in. Yeah.
How common is it? Do you have a number of? how
No,
many-
I do. And I don't have
And
any
then the other thing
statistics.
is, when you said that, the sheriff will put things out, when you said that, I'm thinking of somebody who's on a 2-week cruise, there's a squatter. How do you know what's the squatter stuff and what's the homeowner stuff?
Well, generally, you're talking about the squatters occupying an unoccupied property. So they're just going to put everything out. Now, you're not going to be there. You're not going to be on a 2-week cruise when sheriff's putting the stuff on the street, because you had to file this affidavit just 3 days ago, okay? So you're gonna be here. I mean, this is a whole different procedure than what we're used to. It's not like being set for a court hearing. Anything else?
When does this go into effect?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Then like a superwater text, they seem like a lot, too long, very white, and this, state planner. This is the guy you go to if you're a lawyer. You're not sure what's going on here. You go with that. Okay?
Anything else? Yes, sir.
Joey mentioned that real estate fraud has become huge. Is there any specific thing as realtors and investors we should really be looking for and watching for?
First thing you want to do is go home tonight and change the password on your email account. I'm serious. The next thing you want to do is install two-factor authentication. Most real estate frauds, or a large number of real estate frauds, are caused by breach of email compromise, it's called. We've had it happen in our office. We weren't using two-factor authentication. We are now. I can tell you the tens of thousands of dollars it cost us to figure that out. Okay? How many in here have an email address that is either AOL, Hotmail, or Yahoo? It has been compromised. It may have been compromised 15 times. I subscribe to a service called Aura, A-U-R-A. I'm not trying to push them. $10 a month. When I subscribe to them and put in my email addresses, within 15 minutes, I had 3 hits telling me where they had found them with my passwords on the dark web.
$10 a month?
$10 a month. Okay. Now, so what happens is, I mean, and I go to seminars all the time. FBI is the teacher of the seminar on a lot of them. And they're saying, if it's a realtor and their email is AOL, Yahoo, or Hotmail, you need another realtor. That's the way they feel about it. Okay. It is that prevalent, folks. And they're the ones charged with stopping that cyber fraud. Cyber fraud is a whole other issue. I mean, I can give you a 2-page, like I say, outline, like I did to Tasser yesterday, of different types: seller impersonation fraud, fraudulent notaries, government officials helping people commit fraud here in Shelby County. I can go right down the list.
We need to have you come back.
Well, yes, sir.
What did you say that was, that website you used?
AURA.
AURA, Aura. I think they want more than that, but if you mess around on the internet, you'll find you can get a discount down to about $10, or call them. They'll knock it down. That's what I did. And I got it from somebody else who said, okay, here's what you got to do to get that. Because my email or my Facebook account was compromised. Many of y'all used to be Facebook friends with me. You're not anymore. Facebook cut me off. They cut me off because of bad activity in my Instagram account that wasn't my Instagram account. They took over my Facebook account. I was the one that boosted posts for MIG, for Memphis Investors Group. We lost access to MIG lost access to their Facebook account. It cost them $7,151 and change in one day, because they were using a debit card. Don't ever, how many of you here have a debit card? Cut it up and throw it away and get a credit card. I'm serious. The bank will not, by law, have to protect you on a debit card. They have to protect you, $50 limit on a credit card. Yes, sir.
I was about to say $50 limit on credit card.
Yeah, but not a debit card.
I mean, I've got my debit card on me, but I never use it. I mean, unless I'm going to the bank to pull out some cash.
Well, I have an ATM card. Only works in that ATM machine. It is not a debit card, doesn't have Visa or MasterCard on it. It is an ATM card.
If any of you are using Intuit for like tax stuff, you can also get some of the same protections. I got a notice the other day.
There's lots of companies.
Something medical got hacked, and it's like, we found your stuff on the dark web. Right.
It happens.
I got a notice from Truist.
Yeah.
that Truist Bank, and then also, Ticketmaster. I mean, just, it's everywhere.
I got I use Capital One credit card primarily. I got an email from, did you just make a charge at, Aldi's in Indiana? And before I could hit no, I got a second text. Did you just make a charge at Aldi's in Indiana? 2. There were actually 3. I hit no. I immediately called Capital One, cancel a credit card, send me a new one, go through all that crap. But there were 2 charges at Aldi's. I don't go to Aldi's, number one. I certainly don't go in Indiana when I'm sitting in Memphis. I can give anybody else my credit card. Folks, cyber fraud, not just in real estate, cyber fraud, I mean. Anything else? I know my time's
Jim, I won't be able to use your credit card anymore at all, son.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
All right, well, let's give him a round of applause. I pay right now. This is going to many a time, and I'll tell you what, he is so informative. How many people can find out, who their senator is? Shortly, I know I'm